Why am I dancing with that trans person?
Actually, no, I want to look at this one now. I want to look at this one right now. I've watched this person a few times. Transgender positivity. I'm sure it's called something else, like transgender education or something like that. We've got, would I ever detransition? Why is my visibility so important for transgender people? So right off the bat, there's something a bit narcissistic about this title. Why is my visibility so important for transgender people? Well, is it? Is anyone's visibility important for any group of people? That rather depends on who and what you are, I guess, but I don't know. And then we've got a bit of trans-militantism. Let me just move my stuff. Trans-militantism. Something that I have been very, very against pretty much the entire time that I've been trans. But hey. Yeah, would I ever detransition? Why is my visibility so important to transgender people? Let's have a look.
I'm feeling a bit militant today, so I just wanted to get that out.
We've seen quite a few older so-called trans women pushing very militant ideas, encouraging people to do all kinds of stuff, usually very vaguely, but hey, let's have a look.
I'm feeling a bit militant today, so I just wanted to get that out there. Stand up for what you believe is right. Unless you think what you believe is right is transphobic. Don't do that. And it is quite difficult to pull apart that rejection of the patriarchy and that hostility towards men in general, which is why TERFs are a thing.
Hi everyone. Didn't plan on making a video today, but I figured, hey, look at this beautiful day. I just had to
Is the music a thing now? I don't like the music. I don't think we need the music.
share it with you. I don't know if you can see the ice forming on this river. It's just remarkable. I know it's pretty chilly today. I don't know if you can tell, but it's so cold. Anyway, one thing that's been bouncing around in my head today, yesterday, recently is the idea of detransitioning, and would I ever consider that? And to be honest, I'm looking at myself in the screen here, and I'm not wearing
AGP.
much makeup today, barely any, in fact. And to be honest, I see myself becoming more and more beautiful than I think I ever had any right to be. Every day.
What was I saying about the title seeming a bit narcissistic? Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I look at myself in the mirror and I feel closer and closer to the person that I feel I am. It's amazing. And I know that not everybody might agree with me on that front, but I feel great. I feel amazing. And so why would I take that and consider giving it all up? And the answer is I wouldn't, not consciously. There's maybe a couple of things that might make me consider detransitioning, but it's certainly not going to be an internal issue with the transitioning.
This is going to feel extremely strange in a year or two when you realize you can only go so far and you're not happy anymore. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Process and it not living up to my expectations, because
like, here's the thing. When you feel like you're making progress, it's quite a powerful thing. You know what I mean? You feel happier because you're becoming more and more like what you feel like you should. But the thing is, what happens when you stop making progress and you stop feeling that way? It's only going to go so far. You know what I mean?
If anything, it's far exceeded what I ever thought that it could do for me, even within a year. It's crazy. So what would cause me to detransition? Well, I think for those of you who are unaware of the narrative, well, you know, pay attention. But socially, if it ever becomes impossible for me to live a life, full stop, that might give me a cause to consider giving this up. It's possible that it could be forced upon me regardless. It could be something where I have absolutely no control in the matter. And that would be a tragedy, not just for me, but for every other transgender person in wherever it is I am. It could be a Polish decision, a European decision, a global decision. Who knows? But yeah, that's my thoughts on detransitioning. And I know that it's something that comes up quite a lot. And I do want to say at this point that for anybody who has detransitioned, I feel nothing but sympathy for you. You've obviously been through quite a lot. And I hope that you do find peace and calm and joy in your lives regardless.
I'm sure I watched this guy talk about detransitioners and it was the same. I care about you, but you know what I mean?
So whatever choices you make, and I hope that you are having a good time of it. Anyway, just a quick one. I'm going to snap back to another point in my life. I might be back at home or I might be strolling. I don't know actually what's going to come next in this video, but I'll be adding some more pictures from this.
They look nothing like a woman. Well, yeah. Often the case. And that's the thing. For a while, you can kind of stave it off because, you know, you've just started and you're making progress or whatever. But like I said, what happens when that progress kind of stops? Because it does for everyone. Dysphoria seems to be an addiction to modification of the body. Hey, maybe. And it doesn't have to be modification. It can just be dressing. It can just be makeup and stuff like that. Indulging in one's autogynephilia. You know what I mean?
Because it's a beautiful, beautiful day.
Hey, so it's
I think dysphoria definitely like drives like self-obsession to a certain extent.
a couple of days later after that beautiful day, and as you can see, I'm back in my space because it's snowing and it's really cold outside. So I thought I'd continue this video from the comfort of the coziness of my own flat. So building on that idea of detransitioning, I wanted to walk us all back a couple of decades to the 1980s, 1990s, and actually through to the 2000s as well, where in the UK we were under this system, I guess you could call it, called Section 28. Now what's Section?
Oh, fun. Are we gonna stick some concepts together? Section 28 is now like what's going on in the UK, I'm sure. I think it's a very lazy comparison, personally.
28, you might be asking yourself. So if you're really super lucky and you're not like me and you didn't grow up in the UK in the 80s and 90s, Section 28 was basically a law that was put out by the British government which basically forbade the promotion of homosexuality and most alternative lifestyles such as transgender stuff, which meant...
Did Section 28 even mention transgender? I mean, it might have done. What was it? How did it affect? Prohibit the promotion of homosexuality. Does it have anything to do with trans? Promote homosexuality. It's about homosexuality, not trans. So we're kind of lumping things in together. And like a lot of it seems to be exacerbated by like the AIDS stuff, you know what I mean? Because we just didn't understand it properly. And once we did, we started probably realizing that stuff like this might not have been so helpful. You know what I mean? Like the AIDS stuff didn't help, but the problem there was like ignorance. And yeah, it probably did push a lot of further ignorance because of it. And that's unfortunate, but what has this got to do with anything with what's going on with trans people today? I don't really understand, personally.
Functionally, in places like schools and in the media, it was forbidden from talking about how homosexuality even was a thing because that may be perceived as promotion of that so-called lifestyle. So that meant for me, as I was growing up, there was no examples of trans people.
Yeah, purple wall equals woman, yeah.
There was no way for me to understand who I was. And so that meant that I grew up very lost, very lonely, and very afraid because I just assumed...
Does it mean that? Like, what would have been different if that wasn't around? Would you even have identified with it back then? You don't know. It's very easy to retcon your own past.
There was something horribly wrong with me. And that brings us forward.
Can't fully see how he's dressed. I agree, I could easily see this guy and not even know he's trying to be a woman. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, it just kind of is how it is. But they've got nail polish on, so I don't know. Why do you need to talk to kids about being gay in school? I mean, I can imagine that if you're a gay kid, it can be a bit distressing starting to realize that you're not like the rest of people, like everyone else. And like, it might not be the worst idea to suggest that that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with being that way on its own, you know what I mean? So I guess maybe that kind of thing. I think I draw the line when it starts coming towards things like trans and like gender identity and stuff, because we're much more just putting ideas in kids' heads rather than just explaining that something exists and is okay. You know what I mean? This part of the UK. He's in Poland, I think.
forwards to today, because it feels very much like this state-sanctioned censorship is going on across the pond over in the US, where we can see them removing references to transgender people with a T.
Is that censorship? They've changed how they see. They've changed how they perceive sex and gender. Is it censorship? Or are they just changing to match Trump's executive order? Why is that censorship?
Over in the US, where we...
Because it's like federal stuff. It's not everyone has to stop talking about transgender. And I don't know, it's a bit of a weird argument to say that the government is censoring itself on like trans issues. I don't know.
See them removing references to transgender people with a T and the Q.
Do trans women become women-like by wearing makeup? That's some stereotypical shit. Well, no. The thing is, if you don't look like a woman, people aren't going to regard you as a woman. You know what I mean? And if you don't care about being regarded as a woman, then why are you trans as a male person in the first place? I think that's more the argument than you're less of a woman because of that. It's more just, well, why are you even taking this on? Why are you calling yourself a woman at all when clearly that's not what anyone's seeing?
Being removed from places like the Stonewall Monument. So it's just the LGB reference that they make. The T and the Q are gone, and you can see the same thing on travel advice for queers.
Yeah, this is silly as well. By the way, many countries only recognize the male and female sex markers on passports. So they're still acknowledging this kind of stuff. And the thing about something like this is, you can use your brain. If somewhere is a bit funny about LGBT people, the odds are they're probably going to be a bit funny about like trans people as well. You know what I mean? So you can use your brains with stuff like this. Things have changed a bit. Trump is doing a lot of the stuff that's the platform he ran on, and that's what people voted for. And you have to try and understand that ultimately. But ultimately, this is this is what people voted for. It's just democracy. Sometimes a different group is going to come in that doesn't have the same values as the one that came in before. What are you supposed to do about that exactly?
People from the US as well. Trans people are being very much erased in...
Well, no. You can't erase people just by removing certain references. People still exist.
The US. And I do fear that we'll see the same thing globally.
He got married and is now with a Polish younger girlfriend. I guess that makes sense. We need to stop, though, with this. We're erasing people. No one's been erased by this. If this was erasing people, we wouldn't be hearing about it constantly, because the people going on about it constantly wouldn't be there. To erase someone is to kill them.
Being very much erased in the US. And I do fear that we'll see this.
This is propaganda. This is talking points. It's nonsense.
Same thing globally, as many people follow the US's lead on these sorts of things.
Yeah, but do you understand why people are feeling this way? Do you understand why it's going a certain way?
So what does that mean for me? Because obviously I'm not an American, I'm not in America. There's very little that I can actually do about it. Well, I think one of the things that I can do is basically this. But
there's little anyone can do. So why people having a panic attacks over this is really beyond me. Like, you have to just get on with your life sometimes and accept that the people you don't like are going to be in charge sometimes, that they're going to change things, but that those things don't mean that your life is over, and that you have to find stuff that you care about and find meaning in your own life, irrespective of whether the government still has LGBT travelers or just LGB travelers on their website. Most people actually have more important things to worry about, like making sure there's food on the table, making sure they can afford to pay their bills and stuff, ultimately.
But I think there's such power in just being able for me to go about and be myself on the daily. First of all, it creates this visibility for trans people in general.
This is narcissism.
You might be able to censor us in the media. You might be able to remove us from various spaces. You might be able to...
What spaces are trans people being removed from? I'm sorry. And in any ones that you're being removed from, supposedly, like bathroom bans or whatever, which is like federal buildings in the US, it's really not as much as we're pretending it is. There's still other spaces you can use as your male self. There's male bathrooms, you know what I mean? It is what it is. I'm getting the showered in Florida when they say they're getting erased now, just like they tried to erase women, calling us birthing persons instead. Yeah, I mean, I disagree that that is erasing anyone either, but hey, I don't know. It's okay to do sometimes and not okay to do others. I'm not doing it for me, but doing it for the community.
Tell the world that we don't exist, but if you see us out in the world, in physical places, it's kind of hard to deny that. There we are.
No one is saying you don't exist. Like, what are you talking about, bro?
Remove us from various spaces. You might be able to tell the world that we don't exist, but if
I hate this so much. These people have all just eaten up the same talking points and just pushed them. Every single video I watch, oh, they're erasing trans people. Except they're not. All of you still exist. None of you, mid-sentence, pop out of existence because you haven't been erased. And you're exaggerating.
if you see us out in the world, in physical places, it's kind of hard to deny that. There we are, right there in your face, in, you know, Technicolor, surround sound, all that sort of thing. And you know what? What are we doing? We're not making...
Like what? Leave your house so people can see that there's trans people around. What? Most people don't give a shit. Most people are going on about their daily lives. Most people would not fucking notice whether you leave your house or not.
Demands about being in certain spaces. We're not victims. We're not being murdered. We're not doing whatever it is the media are portraying us as. We're not allowed to be out there living our lives in the media. Oh no, we are...
What? Why are you saying all this? What are you talking about?
We're not victims. We're not being murdered. Color, surround sound, all that sort of thing. And you know what? What are we doing? We're not making demands about being in certain spaces. We're not...
Well, I mean, literally that's what's been going on, but sure.
Victims. We're not being murdered. We're not doing whatever it is the media are portraying us as. We're not allowed to be out there living our lives in the media. Oh no, we are somehow either to be pitied or we are to be hated. But if I'm in IKEA, for example...
What are you talking about? Like, maybe an example would be good here? Like anything? Instead of just whining?
Example, buying some knickknacks and some blankets and whatnot, that seems to go against that whole narrative. It tells a story to
What narrative?
everybody around me. I'm not a victim. I'm just a regular person like you wanting to get some salad tongs. So, you know, just leave me be. And that does mean that I'm...
You want to be left be, then why are you talking about the power of visibility? Sounds like you want to not be visible. You just want to go about your life, which is normal. That's fine. That's what everyone wants.
having to go out there and taking a risk to a certain extent. But I think my visibility is essential at times like this. It's the one thing that I have control over. And
tell me again that this isn't about narcissism. I mean, would I ever detransition? Who asked? How do I stay positive? The transgender women in bathrooms question, like, would I want to stop being transgender? Which it's the same question again. Very me, isn't it? Isn't it? Transgender kids. Oh, it was this one. I don't think it was Detransitioners that I watched about. Like, what is it like being transgender in Poland when you just look like a guy? Who's even regarding you as transgender, quite honestly? Crazy.
And it's the one thing that I can lend my voice to in terms of that trans.
Like, how many times have we heard this? Oh, well, all I can do is be visible. Do to what? Do for what? What do you think you're contributing here, exactly? By being visible, but you're just talking bollocks. Like, if that's the kind of visibility you want, more power to you, but I think that's ridiculous. And it's not as important as you think it is. You're not as important as you think you are.
Narrative, for whatever that means. So this is why I've made a bit of a conscious effort to be a little bit more out there, a little bit more visible, a little bit more myself, not in any kind of assertive, I demand you to call me miss sort of way. It's just a way for me to be out in the world and for people to see that we exist and to normalize.
I just have a hard time people seeing this person around and not just seeing like a gay man or something, which is fine. He started the channel after a few months on starting estrogen. True trans commented the point out is no trans experience. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have much belief that people see this person around and see them as a trans person or a woman. I think they just see a feminine man, which is absolutely fine to be. You don't have to pretend that you're another sex.
Normalize our existence. And to kind of emphasize the change that can make in terms of people's perceptions and the way that people can go and live.
Tell you what, you want to normalize your existence. Stop prattling the same shitty talking points that everyone else prattles. Stop being just yet another one of the mob. You know what I mean?
Live their lives on the daily. On Friday, I went out for a date with Carolina. We went to this really super nice restaurant. I'll actually link to that location in the description, and I might pop a few sort of Insta photos of that place as well, because it was really, really nice. And if you ever find yourself in Warsaw...
Yeah, this person's so oppressed they can go out for nice meals and stuff. Like, okay, sure, much oppression, very wow.
You know, give it a try. In that restaurant, I was visibly me. I was wearing a fairly low-key dress. I wasn't wearing anything too extravagant. I mean, you see my style. I'm not exactly going full guns on makeup and stuff, but I was there. People saw me. It was whatever. But beyond that, in that restaurant and just out on the streets of Warsaw, I saw so many gay and queer couples just out in the world. Ahead of us in the queue as we were waiting for our table in the restaurant, there was this gay couple, and they were so sweet. They had flowers. They couldn't keep their hands off each other in the queue of this restaurant. Now, for a bit of context, Poland is the bottom ranked country in the EU for LGBTQ rights. And I think it's probably earned...
Yeah. And we're complaining that places like the UK are oppressive to trans people. We used Section 28 to make a point that made no sense. And yet you can still go out and do that kind of shit. Oh, Amaya, you also like harassers to the point where you'll date them. So I don't know what you want people to think, quite honestly.
That position, because in terms of its legality, it's pretty bad. But also in terms of the social perception over gay people, it's also, let's say, it could do with a bit of an improvement. It wasn't that long ago.
He says he wore a dress into work to come out, but no video or picture evidence. Yeah, true.
When we had gay-free spaces, like entire towns and villages would declare themselves gay-free. And they've gone away now, thankfully. But I think that was only a couple of years ago that happened. So it just goes to show that Poland's not exactly the best place for gay people. But in these restaurants of Warsaw, we saw gay couples openly being couples in these places. And it wasn't that long ago when they would have faced stuff, whatever that means. And this is within just a few years. We've seen that shift, and it comes through that normalization of seeing them out.
His point is that going around doing stuff is going to make people accept trans people. When I don't entirely disagree. You see people gender bending. The more you see it, the more normal it's going to get. But then gay people have been doing that for a long fucking time anyway. So this guy's really not furthering anything. Because who's seeing this person as a transgender woman, honestly? And then the other thing is, the problem isn't with trans people not being visible enough. The problem isn't normalizing trans people. The problem is the kind of overreach that we've been doing. The insistence on pushing this kind of stuff on kids. The insistence on using certain spaces that are not for people of our sex. That kind of thing, you know?
And about that they are not this demon entity that people might think they are, as certain politicians or as the certain narratives might suggest. They're just...
Like, what narratives? Bro's really living in one of the worst countries to be gay and still claims the UK is worse. Yeah, it is what it is. Obviously, the EU disagrees, you know.
A loving couple. They just want to enjoy their ramen in peace, just like everybody else. And I think if my visibility can add to that shift, then that's amazing. And beyond that, as
I don't see how you're changing anything whatsoever. And what we're doing is ignoring the actual elephants in the room around trans inclusion in society. And as long as we keep doing that, nothing's gonna change. You know what I mean? Nothing's gonna change. Because you're still gonna insist that children should transition. You're still gonna insist that female rape centers should allow men in them when there's clear problems with that kind of thing. that women's prisons should be opened up to men as well. And then we start seeing female inmates getting pregnant off of them. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit ridiculous, quite frankly. And you talk about like trans militantism at the start. Again, none of that shit is helping.
As I say, as we see more and more government and state-sponsored censorship attacking trans people, then it makes it doubly important for the likes of...
Like, what's censorship? All we got was like the Stonewall Monument. Is that even anything to do with the government? Like, this page about LGBT travel instead of LGBT travel? Like, I don't understand. If that's the best you can do for like censorship, then you're making no point at all. And quite honestly, life is going to go on. Instead of scaremongering about this shit, you could have used what you were saying about like the restaurant and stuff to make a much better point, which is that you still have your life. You still get to go out and do things. And what you should do is try and fucking continue enjoying your life and continue doing things that you can do. Because most people don't give a shit, honestly. If I saw this guy walk past me in the street where I live, I wouldn't bat a fucking eyelid. I see plenty of stuff that makes less sense to my eyes than this. I don't care about any of that either, because looking like shit is a human right. You can do what you want. So yeah, unfortunately, there's like a way better point in here, but we insist we're having to like shove in all the weird scaremongering and all this like censorship. There's no censorship. What are you talking about?
Of me, people for whom it's relatively safe for me to be out, because
What's Sarah Bella's dead name, Amaya? Can you tell me what Sarah Bella's dead name is? I think you owe me that, seeing as how she showed up calling me a bootlicker a million times, and you seem cool with it because you're like dating her and stuff. What's her dead name?
I'm not facing any issues with my work, although, as you know, we'll see how that goes, but that's not related to anything more than them being financially in trouble. I am psychologically secure in my position. I am in a very good, strong relationship. I do have a very good network of friends and colleagues and family who will support me. So I can do this. It's not something that's going to cause me too many problems. So if I can go out and show others that it's possible, show others that trans people exist.
Just going out in public. I don't think you're doing what you think you're doing. There's like an inflated sense of importance here. And then you do the scaremongering shit. Well, if you're so like secure in who you are and stuff, if you're so like mentally strong and stuff, why are you scaremongering? Why are you trying to freak people out who are less mentally strong than you? I don't think that's cool to do.
Then maybe there's going to be some impact I'll have on other mini trans folk who can't be out, who can't transition, who can't be visible, because I really appreciated that when I was closeted and hidden and questioning and scared. There is one more thing that I want to add about this though. There is this arrogance of those in power. They will come and they will display these examples of how they think they can wield their power. They can take away information on government websites. They can forbid things from being talked about in the media. They can...
It's got nothing. What are you talking about? What is all this shit?
Own the streets in terms...
I'm not the one. No, I'm asking you. Stop bullshitting me. You date a harasser who came to my shit for no apparent reason to call me a bootlicker 20 times in a row.
In terms of what's shown on posters and in billboards and the...
Do you think if you just fob me off enough times, I'm just going to let it go? I'm not cool with that shit. And I talk to you about it on Twitter. You're like, oh, well, I don't control them. I don't give a fuck. This person shows up and harasses me. You want to pretend that we're cool and stuff. I'm not sure that we are cool, quite frankly. I think there's a bit more effort needed than just fobbing me off and then showing up in my chat 5 days later. You know what I mean?
Messages can be whatever they want it to be. And we can see the effects of this. We can see it in a recent UK government poll. People's perceptions of trans people and trans rights have become worse. The media, they can own the streets in terms of what's shown on posters and in billboards, and the messages can be whatever they want it to be.
Meaningless.
And we can see the effects of this. We can see it in a recent UK government poll.
Like, this is meaningless. What are you talking about? You don't understand why this is happening. It's not because the people in power are trying to make people transphobic. That's pretty ridiculous, quite frankly.
People's perceptions of trans people and trans rights have become worse. And this...
He doesn't know why. I could tell you why very easily. It's because we went too far. We're trying to fuck up women's sports. We're trying to fuck up kids' bodies. You know what I mean?
Is a direct result of that propaganda. So where does that leave us? Well, I'm always mindful of...
Like, that's the result of propaganda, is it? Will you ever pay any attention to what's been going on your side for quite a while now? You don't understand what's going on here, so I don't know why you're talking about it, quite frankly.
The 1980s, again, Section 28, and if you see survey results of people's...
This is completely meaningless. Correlation doesn't equal causation. And Section 28 has got nothing to do with trans people. We're not living in the 80s anymore. It's a very different time. And the thing is, about like the 80s and stuff, we had the whole AIDS crisis. We didn't really understand straight away what was happening. So yeah, of course it made people's perceptions of gay people go down because we didn't understand any better. It was born out of ignorance. But the problem is, with trans people, a lot of people's issues are not born out of ignorance. They're born out of not being very happy with the idea of children transitioning, not being very happy with the idea of like trans women in women's sports, where males have advantages in most sports. So it seems unfair and unsafe. And like women's spaces, allowing male rapists into female prisons, which is insane. Like, he doesn't understand what he's talking about. This is propaganda. Excuse me. Sorry, that was gross. This is propaganda.
Perceptions of gay people, it would be fairly common that a large majority of people would say that homosexuality is always wrong. This was in the 80s. You know, that's not that long ago. That's within a generation's memory of time. It's a blink of an eye.
Within a generation's memory. I was conceived at the very tail end of the 80s and I'm in my 30s now. It was quite a while ago.
In terms of history and in terms of civil rights. And now...
And like we say, it's not a long time ago. The 80s was a completely different time to now. Like, we didn't even have the internet, really, in the 80s. Did anyone have a home computer? Completely different world. I have this conversation with my wife all the time. She says it's the pendulum swinging the other way. It is to an extent. But it's also a backlash to extremism on our side. I say we should stop that, stop swinging from extreme to extreme. I agree with that. That's why I am saying that things like trans sports, trans inclusion in women's sports isn't okay. That's how you stop it, is with compromise. We have to learn how to compromise, and we're seemingly unable to. And unfortunately, until we do, it's just not going to work. And I don't think it's ever going to swing back in our favor until we start compromising.
As I say, people are on the streets just living their lives just a couple of decades later. That's not to say that that journey magically happened. People have had to fight for these. People have had to push against that narrative, against that propaganda. They've had to do that through their visibility, through their voices, through their...
This person is massively overstating how important visibility is. To my mind, seemingly because they want themselves to feel more important than they are. I'm sorry, bro. You're as important as any of the rest of us. Well, I say that, I don't know, I've got a fair number on you in terms of subscribers. Maybe I could make a case for myself, but I don't really see it that way. You know what I mean? Any compromise is seen as betrayal to their side. Yeah, that's a huge problem. And we need to change the way that we think about things. We need to change the way that we deal with these things. People like this are never going to help that kind of shit. You shut your computer off and TV, most of this extremism will go away. Yep, that's true. That's very true.
Dedication, their hard work, and their perseverance. Can I be such a person? Can I retain the energy to push against that narrative? I don't know. At this point, I hope so, but I am exhausted, and it's only February.
I'm exhausted, and yeah, you can go out to nice restaurants, you can do all kinds of stuff in what's supposedly the least friendly European country to gay people. Do you know what that suggests? It suggests that elsewhere in the world, being gay, being trans and stuff like that is way worse than what it is in Europe, in America. And we're crying over like spilt milk in comparison to what gay people face in like some African countries, plenty of Asian, Middle Eastern countries. Yeah, the music is like bizarre. I don't know what is going on here. It's like a fever dream. I'm losing my mind.
So we'll see. But for me, even being outside as me, being visible as me, that's something that I can do day to day. And I don't know.
Like, there is a point in here. Like, you can just get on with your life. I agree with that. You can go out to like nice restaurants and have a good time and meet other people. You can do all of that. And this censorship narrative completely fails because he didn't show any real censorship. Like why not just carry on? Why not just make the best of what might be a bad situation? There might be some stuff in the US under Trump that's going to be more complicated, for sure. But the way people are going on, the way people are treating it is insane. We've lost our minds over this shit. Going out, okay, but going out to make a point. Yeah, and like, I don't know. It really is making him exhausted. Why don't you just stop and simply start living as a human being, humbled by experience and learning and love? Well, that's not the AGP way. It's not the latent narcissist way, ultimately. And listen, I'm psychoanalyzing a bit, but I'm getting a lot of vibes from this person. I'm sorry. Listen, if I'm wrong and this person is not a narcissist, then I don't know. They're putting down a lot of signifiers that suggest otherwise. I don't know who's asking if you'd detransition.
I'm not saying this is something that you need to do. I'm not saying this is something you should do. As I said, I've got the circumstances which allow me to do this. So it's completely up to you to decide how you feel. You can contribute to all of this if you feel you even can. But I don't want you to lose hope. That's what I'm saying. I don't want you to feel that where we are now is a permanent fixture and this is how things will always be, because it can feel like we are getting to that point. It can feel like where we are now is a uniquely specific example of things, and this is new, and this is going to be permanent, and this is going to be forever. This is never the case. Things always change. So let's try to be mindful of that. Let's try to focus on...
Yeah, but are things going to change if you just carry on the same way that you have been? If you think that all you have to do is be visible, that's not going to change things, because there are specific things that people want dealt with that are not being dealt with. What is needed for change is compromise.
On what we can do today. Let's focus on our lives today, and let's look ahead to the future with a little bit of hope, with a little bit of optimism. I don't think that's naive. We can see from history that sometimes things get worse before they get better, but they do.
Yeah, but you're acting like it's just going to get better on its own, and it's not. Like I said, we need compromise. There needs to be change. You've got yours. You're fine. You can go out and do what you want. You earn money and shit like that. Not everyone has that fucking ability, quite honestly. This person thinks they're making groundbreaking statements. Yeah, true. And there's parts that I agree with, like saying like not to lose hope. I agree with that. But like, we shouldn't be pushing these bizarro narratives. We shouldn't be acting like this is Section 28 again, when there's just no parallel, when we don't live in that same world anymore. Like, times change, attitudes change. But the thing is, you're not showing any semblance of understanding the other side. You're not understanding why it is that there's been a backswing. You have to understand why there's been a backswing. Otherwise, everything you're saying is meaningless. Unless all you are here to say is that you can get on with your life, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But then we lump in all the other shit. We talk about Section 28. We talk about censorship. And then the best example we have is like a federal website changing slightly their references to like LGBT/LGBT people, you know?
Get better. And by the same token, we can't wish for that thing. We can't hope that things will just get better on their own. We might need to contribute to that somehow.
How?
However that is. And
He doesn't know how. I'll tell you how. With compromise.
I know that's hard to hear, because it feels like, oh my goodness, do I need to take some kind of responsibility? I don't know how to do this. But sometimes just living your life.
None of you do. You're all just panicking. You're all just losing your shit and saying, oh, we need to do something. We need to come together. We listen to Katie Montgomery talking about like community organizing, where she doesn't have a fucking clue what she's talking about. We listen to, what was that person named Layson Steele or something, sounding like a fucking terrorist. And like, I'll give this person something. I like this video way better than either of those videos. But at the same time, you don't have a clue. You don't know why it's got to this point. You don't know what the problems are. And if you did acknowledge what the problems are, I have a feeling a bunch of your viewer base would reject you outright. But then, I don't know, man. You've been around how long? You've been around how long? Do you have enough of a viewer base to really worry about that so much, quite frankly? If you started telling the truth, maybe things would improve. I don't know. We've been doing this about the same length of time. The difference being, I guess I post more often, and I do a different genre or whatever. But I'm honest, and I understand what the problems are.
Is enough.
He joins in the comments with these same seven paragraph, blah, blah, blah. Blocked me for telling me men cannot be in women's spaces. I did engage with him. I can't remember which video it was. Like suggesting that he watched one of my videos that criticized one of his. And it started getting weird and argumentative. And he started like trying to twist my words and stuff like that. And eventually I just kind of gave up. Because I don't like people doing that kind of shit. I'm not there for people to start twisting my words and start looking for ways to just write me off. You know what I mean? And that's what I felt was going on. So I don't think there's any hope for this person turning honest, you know what I mean? And whether he's being honest or not, like, it's quite possible that he's a Johnny-come-lately to this fucking thought cult, and everything he knows is filtered through other people who are full of shit, you know what I mean? And some of the references, we've got the Pink News, LGBTQ Nation, Advocate, all very, very biased sources. NYT, and like, sorry about the NYT link, don't give them any money. They're a bad source for trans news. Like, this person thinks that biased news sources are good. You know what I mean? Lib Dem voice. What is that? Lib Dem voice. Fucking Lib Dems. Okay, bro. Okay.
And I'm talking to everybody here. I'm not just talking to trans people. Just be a decent person. Stand up for what you believe is right.
Well, part of being a decent person is not lying. And you've been doing some lying here. You've been doing some lying by omission. By framing this whole issue a certain way of just anti-trans propaganda. It's just silly.
Unless you think what you believe is right is transphobic. Don't do that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling a bit militant today, so I just wanted to get that out there. Okay, let's pivot to some life updates.
Listen, this guy's militant shit, compared to some of the shit I've seen, is at least tame enough. Like, I'll be honest, this is not the worst thing I've ever seen in some ways. There are parts of it where, if we're using our brains, we could come up with a much better argument, that being things that might not going to be amazing under Trump for like trans people. But you can still get on with your life. You can still go out and go to restaurants and shit like that. I don't fucking know. And the US is not, in fact, Saudi Arabia or somewhere like that. Didn't we just hear a woman who was assaulted for speaking what she thinks is right? Yeah, but the way this person interprets transphobia, they probably think that's fine. I don't know.
If any of you care about that, life updates. I'm still tired. I still don't know what's going on with work. It's exhausting. I wish I had some kind of resolution, some kind of clarity. I wish that they would just say, look, you're going to lose your job. You've got 3 months. Sorry, but that's how it is. Because at least then I'd have a goal. I'd have a timeline. I'd have something that I could work towards. But there isn't. I'm in this kind of nether region of I both simultaneously have and do not have a job. It's kind of like Schrodinger's redundancy. So that sucks. I ordered my glasses, for those of you who are up on my card, because I didn't get that many comments last week, which I guess it's kind of on me because the video, maybe the content didn't lend itself so much to discussion.
Maybe I should check back. I don't know if he always does this or if this is just a new thing.
Debate. So hopefully this one will generate a few more conversations. I suppose I have to go back to somebody, they commented this week, but it's about a video that I released a few weeks ago. It's the why I'm hopeful for 2025.
Stand up for what you believe is right. You don't need a reason or permission, unless you disagree with me, in which case...
video, which I suppose is relevant to what I'm talking about today. There's a bit of a crossover between this video and that video. In their comment, they say that the manosphere has no political pull, which I think is an interesting assertion, because for me, the manosphere is very much a political pull, which I think is an interesting assertion, Because for me, the manosphere is very much about, it's a deeply conservative kind of...
I don't even know what the manosphere is, to be honest.
Or activism, or in terms of visibility, or you'd like to say about today's video, if you have any thoughts about what you can do in terms of your...
Yeah, none of these have any fucking clue. It's all about, oh, we need to do something, we need to do something. But all of them are just crying on YouTube instead of doing anything. It's a bit ridiculous, quite honestly. And the reason is, none of you understand the problem. None of you understand why it's got this way. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, you're never going to know what to do. You're never going to know how to change anything because you don't understand the problem. Manosphere is a man trying to sell you crypto and getting you to go to the gym. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. If we're talking about like fresh and fit and shit like that, I'm not down with that shit either. To be honest, some of it, I don't know, actually. I don't know. Never mind. Yeah, I don't know. Wow. I had an orchiectomy to prevent being forcibly no one's forcibly detransitioning you. People are crazy. If I'm forced to live under a regime that forces me to identify as male in the public, mate, your identity starts and ends in your own brain. That's nuts. Like, no one's forcing anyone to identify as anything. Anyone can identify as anything. Manosphere to trans pipeline. He is absolutely doing this to fight feminists. Hey, maybe. Jesus Christ. ContraPoints, Philosophy Tube, Katie Montgomery, Jesse Gender, all in the manosphere. Hey, maybe. They wouldn't see it that way, but hey, I don't know. I'm not down with invading women's spaces, so I don't know. I could move this up, couldn't I? Yeah, I'll do that. All right, there we go. That was transgender positivity, formerly transgender education. I don't know. As in terms of people freaking out because of the current climate, this was at least more reasonable than some that I've seen, but this person does not understand what's going on. They do not understand why it's become this way. They just think that, oh, if I keep going out and being visible, then that'll make things better again. Nothing's going to get better until we start addressing some issues, until we start compromising. And the problem is, the trans people are always going to be on the back foot because there's not very many of them. So I don't know, man.